be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Glory. At that time, Jesus said to his disciples, "Do not think I have come to abolish the law and the prophets. I have come not to abolish them, but to fulfill them. For truly I say to you, till heaven and earth pass away, not an iota, not a dot will pass from the law until all is accomplished. Whoever then relaxes one of the least of these commandments and teaches men so, shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But he who does them and teaches them shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven." The Gospel of the Lord. God is good, and all the time. So in our today's reading, and from the first reading all the way to the Gospel, Paul and Christ are talking about the law. And this law is which Christ have come to fulfill that was said by the prophets. And the law of the prophets was salvation of the people if they kept the commandment of God. But the salvation of Christ was a salvation in spirit, that God's Spirit is to redeem people from the slavery of sin. And when we talk about slavery, how were people born in slavery, or how did people get to be in slavery? One, if you are born of a slave mother, so Paul would quote about Haggai and Sarah. When Sarah could not bear a child, she asked Abraham to go and be with Haggai, who was the maid, so that they could get a son. And they went and got Ishmael, who is a son born out of slavery. And therefore, when Sarah, who was the true wife, or the legal or legit wife of Abraham, gave birth, Ishmael was pushed away with no rights of heirship. Therefore, if you are born of a slave woman or a slave family, you automatically become a slave. Even the refugees who are given refuge in our country, if they give birth to their children, those children are not citizens to Kenya by birth, because they are already in the secluded area of refugees. So they are refugee children. So by mere fact that we are children of Abraham, we are slaves to sin, to concupiscence. The other way you would become a slave is by being a prisoner of war. If people go to war and then some are got, like during the struggle for independence in our country, those who are caught, the Mau Mau who are caught, were taken to the concentration camps. A word that we loosely use today when you go, but it is still the mentality because our minds are colonized. So we refer it to too loosely. When you go to Nairobi or to other affluent areas, when you are going back to your home, you say, "I'm going back to Gishagi." Gishagi refers to a concentration camp. So your mother is living in a concentration camp. Do some effort and lift her from the concentration camp and make it a home. So one way was when you become a prisoner of war. That was the second way. And the third way was when you sell yourself because you have a debt. So how are we prisoners of war? We are fighting against the evil spirit, or what we call Satan loosely, so that we are in a war. Two spirits are warring. The Spirit of God in us that tells us, let us do the right. Then there is the wrong spirit that is telling us, fanya tu kwani, just do it. What will come through? Just let's see what comes through. So those are two spirits in war. And therefore, if we follow one that tends us to the evil or to the wrongs, we become slaves. And therefore, if you have done something wrong, your guilt is always on you. You are always a slave to other people. You don't want to meet them because you think your sin is written on your face when nobody even cares if you sinned or not. But you are a slave. But when you go to the right, when you go to the light of God, you become free. When the truth will set you free. When you are a free being and you are doing the right thing, you don't care who sees you or who doesn't. But when you are doing something wrong, you have to hide yourself even under your bed, your bed, or whatever you want to hide yourself from. So, we ourselves too sell ourselves to slavery. How many times have we sold ourselves to slavery? Slavery to some addiction. Slavery to some unquenchable thirst for money, for power, for prestige, and for all those stuff that we look for in this world. Therefore, why did Jesus come then? He came to redeem us from this slavery. So, in the Old Testament, we use the physical things. We use the goats, we use the altar, and that's the stone. Wherever they were making an altar, they were putting a stone. The commandments themselves were carved on a stone, but when they were brought to the people, they had already done a molten calf. So, Moses did throw the commandments down, and it brought curse on the people of Israel. So by that, sometimes we remain in the physicality of what is seen from without. Those people we call good are the people who dress good, the people who are people, those people you see and say, hey, she's just on point, he's just on point. Those are the things we look at people. If you don't dress good, if you don't walk good, if you don't do what people like, you're not good. But today, in the gospel, in the first reading, we are called to be in the Spirit. The law is not supposed to enslave people. The law is supposed to give people freedom as the children and heirs of a kingdom. Sometimes we don't act as the children of God. Look at us. Do we really live like children of a king? Or we live like children of paupers? The way we behave with each other. If we all belong to the same kingdom, why am I wrong and you are right? Even in life, some people will behave as if they have the monopoly of goodness. If one good is not approved by them, then that is not a good. Do we have the spirit of the law, what they call epikeia? If you are driving on the road, what does the law say? Use the left side when you are driving. What if a mad person is driving on the left? Will you keep left because you want to follow the law? You will die. And that's what most of us are doing. We are following the cultural discharges and the social acceptable things in our time. Yet they are wrong. And nobody wants to start on the right. Go to the right. Drive from the right and say, there was a mad person. There's something wrong happening. Who can do that today? As a Christian, do you stand for the truth? Do we do what is right even when people would not want it? One example would be, here I know we are farmers and most of us do maize, right? Or waru or boga or something like that. Let us give an example with maize. When people have harvested and there's a lot of food, what do people do? Keep it in store, dry it, keep it in store, and wait for drought so that they may sell it expensive and gain more profit. Are you not a murderer? In business term, you're sharp. But who would sell to a dying person food? Who would sell food to a dying person? That is the mentality we have been put in. We have been colonized by the law of business, the law of whatever. That is what colonizes our mind. But what is the truth? Do we wait for people to suffer so that we may make them our slaves? The law says Christ came to redeem all of us. Love your neighbor as you love thyself. So when somebody is suffering, it is you who are supposed to redeem them and save them from the slavery of shame. Let us be people. I was naked, you never clothed me. When someone has done a sin, it's like when a mother, the daughter or the son does something wrong. The mother or the father will ask them, you want to clothe us with shame? When somebody is in sin, they are naked. When someone is on the wrong, they are naked. Don't make them naked more than they should be. Our law is love. Our law is to redeem those who are in such problems. And that is the spirit of the law. To help others wash themselves clean. To help them regain their honor in society. So let us have that spirit of the law. Let us alleviate the slavery that enslaves each one of us. Everyone here has his or her own kind of slavery. Let us help each other to pull out of those slavery, that God may be pleased with us because we are all working in the spirit of the law. Tumsifu Yesu Kristo.